Your call has been forwarded to the automated upload system of
The American Drill Report.
At the tone, please record your message.
So, Adam Jeup from YouTube. Premise here is a new short form alternative podcast sort of thing where I call a given person in the community with a given topic or question. We have a phone call for 5 to 15 minutes about something that they would be likely to have some good perspective on. So I've got a topic / question for you if you would like to be our first episode.
Hi, yeah, happy to be here.
Cool. So, topic for this is real simple. It is being in the community and a member of the community. Obviously, you're like 50-something years old. You've been doing this activity for like 40-something years, and you've engaged in it in a lot of different capacities very, very meaningfully. So, first, I just kind of want to generally ask, what has your relationship been with being a member of the community, and how has that changed over time as you've participated in different projects? And also clarify your age and how long you've actually been doing this.
Yeah, so I've been doing this for 20 years. I started in 2005 as a freshman in high school, and I graduated in 2008. And when I finished that, I thought it was over, right? This was like the era where YouTube was being invented. So there wasn't really easy ways to share drill videos and share communication and training and whatnot. So a lot of what we were doing was scraping together whatever we could find on the internet using these old school forums to try and share information. So my first interaction with the wider community, I suppose, outside of, we used to have a very social, soloists would used to find each other at these drill competitions that were local, and then we would form a circle, and then we'd all spend some time playing drill games or showing off in the middle of the circle, stuff like that. And so the World Drill Championships didn't start until like 2007, and my first World Drill Championships was 2009. And it was Matt Perot, who was one of the rival soloists that was in my kind of cohort, that invited me to do that and told me about what was going on, and that was my first foray into the community. So I thought drill was kind of over after graduating, so I didn't pick up a drill rifle until like 8 months after graduating. And I was a really good soloist in high school, and I won a whole slew of stuff and everything. But when I got to the World Drill Championships and I started competing against people who were the ones who won everything all at home, I did pretty bad, terribly, second of the class place there. But what was super nice is that was my first introduction to the community. And I think that there is when you enter in the community, you think people are looking for you for your skill level and that they're judging you for how good you are, what you bring to the table technically. And the reality is that we're all just people, and we all just kind of like hanging out with people who are passionate. And so being passionate at the World Drill Championships, despite placing low and not feeling like I did the job I wanted to do, didn't really matter because I got to meet people like Andre Ryan and Matt Wendling and at the time, Drea Bryant, like people who were just really passionate in the community in 2009, who all gave me these little tidbits and everything on, how to improve, right? I think a lot of people ask who was my coach, and to that, my answer is the entire drill community was my coach, because you pick up things here and there. So that was kind of my introduction as a member of the community without even being notable in any fashion, right? And so when I came back the next year, after being involved with the community in a much closer fashion as far as interacting with the forum and participating in online drill games and the like, I realized that the wealth of information I'd gathered over the past year or two was something that people didn't get. It was something that I couldn't get until I entered in the community. And that was my transition into being a mainstay in the community and providing something for the community. And that was why I made the training videos in the first place, the trick library and instructionals and everything. By putting forth that passion and that effort, keep in mind, I was still like a mid-placing. I think we got 17th place in 2010, right? It's still low to mid-placing. But despite that, like the passion was what shone through when I started getting leadership roles in the community as well, right? So being level-headed, being a little technically advanced, and being able to put larger projects together. And so I ended up being part of the connection team, which is the moderated team, for a project called the Drillers Consortium, which was the main forum at the time. That would eventually evolve into the Independent Drill Facebook group that we still use today. And so this kind of transition from like member to like leader happened a little bit over time by just looking at what holes and what gaps were in the community that I could provide for. Which, as more of those holes get plugged, I think that it gets harder and harder to find meaningful places to kind of contribute as a newer driller. But those places are still there, especially when I look toward the future of drill. It's in the development of the World Drill Championships team event, which I would like to see a full-fledged team event kind of take over in this space. And it's a cool position to be in where kind of everyone in the drill community knows who I am. But more important to me is that they know that they can call upon me for advice, for podcasts such as this one, for any sort of kind of contribution. I'm down and I'm happy to do it. And I think that that's a really important attitude to bring across the table, especially as a leader of the community.
Sick. Okay, great answer. So to that I would ask, what would you tell somebody who asks how they can do what you do or be integral piece or member of the community in the way that you are, despite the difference in tenure that anybody is bound to have relative to you? What would you advise them to do, or where would you point them to set them on the path of being a relevant agency in this community?
Yeah, so I think it's very natural today to look to the world and look at the biggest celebrity on TikTok and the biggest person who specialist, who maybe they stream on Twitch and get 15,000 people to tune into every Twitch stream. Or maybe they post on YouTube and every video gets 10 million views. And it's so tempting to I want to be the biggest and the best. But what the world needs most is the people on the ground making influencers on 12 people, right? And I think anyone who graduates from a high school with any sort of technical skill and ability in drill needs to immediately go find a high school to coach. That was so influential to my ability to be a leader, because nobody just wakes up and they're a leader. No one makes those good decisions. We all have to go through this learning process. And a lot of the learning process happens at these smaller stages, in which I was a coach for 2 different schools, and the first one didn't work out, and I ended up leaving. And then the second one worked out really well, and they ended up winning an exhibition championship title. And I had a co-coach with that in Biasati. And so I think instead of looking to how can I influence the whole community, you actually want to influence the small community. As I developed as a leader, especially when I was working with Hollins High School, so many of those people went on to continue to elevate the community. On that team was Anthony Biasati, who participated in the World Drill Championships later on, Nicholas Garcia, who participated in the World Drill Championships later on, Heather Biasati and Robin Kuda, who they provided a lot of photography, they competed a little bit, right? Ethan Tinsley, who went on to join the Air Force Honor Guard. There's another Air Force Honor Guardsman who was part of it towards the end of my coaching experience, right? So 2 Air Force Honor Guardsmen. Literally, those 6 people, there's others too, right? Who contributed in smaller ways or went off to go coach high schools and everything. That didn't happen in a vacuum, right? They were inspired to do something like that, and they were inspired to go off and into the world and continue with their drill career in a variety of different ways and contribute how they could, right? And so the closer you can get to people and help to inspire them, the more your influence amplifies. So instead of looking at there's not a huge amount of gaps in the wider community anymore. But where the gaps are so many high schools don't know how to start a team. So many high schools don't have a coach for their team. so many high schools, drill competitions, they don't have enough judges, right? And I look to people like Alex Stratton, who's coaching high schools and judging events and really contributing in as many ways as possible. And I think, like, again, it's this like reimbursement of passion, where if you throw passion in a direction, you start seeing results. And you saw the results this year where he ended up getting second place in tandem. He's doing competitively really well. And this was a guy who left the community for a couple of years before coming back. So when you look toward building that leadership and legacy, it's like, ask people if they need help, right? I look at people like James Scala, who's always like, I would like to contribute. How can I contribute? Please tell me how I contribute. And then when you give him those feedback, he does it. He goes and teaches at school and goes and figures out a way to do stuff. And I think that's where people need to look, especially shortly after graduating. Make your mistakes as a coach, but go and coach. Go and contribute to the small scene. And you will find that the people who finally have access to, it was my journey too. I went to the World Drill Championships and finally had access to like good teachers who can inspire me. And that is what I made product of. And that's how you're going to multiply your legacy in a really meaningful way while providing a very hands-on and tangible and tactical way of providing for the community.
So would you say that it stands to reason that the smaller scale community influence that people participate in has had a pretty direct correlation with the exponential growth that we've seen in the not only world championship space, but also the national solo and tandem space over the last couple of years?
Yeah, I think the more you do, the more you see opportunities to do more, right? As a coach, right, you go out and you coach a team, and you start seeing these holes that you can address that other people can't, right? Maybe there's, I think there's a hole right now where there's not an online coach, right? I do live streams for the Drill Dojo, and those live streams act as somewhat of a general coach for the community. You submit your videos, you get your feedback. It's all exclusively based on like your execution of the tricks. I think right now that there's a gap where nobody's doing live streams for the drill community where people submit videos and get live feedback and reactions and critique on it, right? And so I think what ends up happening is that when you start with what you can, you find the holes of what can grow. And I think this explosion of solo drill, especially, but the technical ability, arose from a series of holes that needed to be plugged, right? So the first hole that needed to be plugged was instructional content that people can access from anywhere in the world and making that accessible. And that's where Independent Drill, the predecessor YouTube channel of the Drill Dojo, came into place. And so when you go back and watch all these old videos, I literally just filmed some strip library content. I filmed some slow-mo and some instructional content and just threw it up online. And that was a great opportunity and it immediately got a lot of people more invested in drill. But then a second problem happens. And you're going to look at some videos from 2014 to 2019, 2020, and all of those are ridden with drops, so many drops all over the place. And so on this macro level, you see this trend evolving over like 4-ish years, and you're like, well, what's going on here, right? Because we weren't dropping this much beforehand. And it was a combination of two things. The first thing was the introduction of the unbreakable stocks, which meant people were able and more comfortable trying things outside their skill set. If they could land it 3 times in practice, they threw it in their routine and then dropped it, right? So number one was kind of this like unseen effect where all of a sudden the equipment was much, much better. But number two was something that I could address, which is, hey, there's no pathway through this instructional content. It's just out there. People are finding the biggest, baddest tricks they can, and there's no structure to how to get there. So they're trying the coolest stuff and then failing at it, right? It looks terrible. And that's where the Drill Dojo came in, where it was like, all right, well, I'm going to plug the hole with like active feedback on how to do these tricks, and I'm going to put it in order in a curriculum, right? And the Drill Dojo tripled, quadrupled what independent drill could offer, both from a JRTC standpoint and a soloist standpoint. And I think it came at the right time where we saw in 2020, a lot of schools shut down, and a lot of these programs had a hard time getting teams together. And so people who were interested in drill or instructors who didn't know how to carry on their legacy. We saw a lot of instructors leave the community and retire on that period. They had no idea how to get people back into it. And so having the drill dojo fall into place as a soloist building, you build the person, and if you build the person, you build the team. And that's a philosophy that I take with me. I'm a very psychology-oriented person. I think psychology influences sociology. That's where you find these holes to be plugged, right? And now that the drill dojo has found its nice home, it's very steady, I think the next hole to be plugged is, okay, well, two new problems have emerged, right? The first new problem is, well, everyone drills like I drill, right? I had a particular style that was very oriented on like the raw output of tricks. All of a sudden, since people are using my program, they drill like me. Well, that's kind of a problem, but we have this other problem, which is World Drill Championships hasn't evolved out of solo and tandem very well in the past ever, right? But now we have all these people who drill very similarly, and now we have a lot of them who can actually meet up into an area and put together a performance, right? And so that's where I feel that this other hole that I can help plug is through gathering people for team events, providing opportunities for team stuff to go down, to encourage people to actively do so. And I think that's what's going to help grow the community much further. So we're looking at a third-ish problem, the retention problem here, right? Which is if you're going to win the World Drill Championships, we're seeing people who are exceptionally talented stay in the community for much longer, and therefore they're taking up these top 10 slots for much longer in their attempt to win the World Drill Championships. In order to win, now you have to have 6, 7, 8 years of post-high school ability in order to really find that sweet spot of content, of presentation, right? Of pageantry to actually put together this know-how of how to win the event. In the meantime, while you're doing that, I think a lot of people get tired of placing 17th place, which is now a great placement. When I placed 17th, it was out of 22. Now when you play 17th, it's well, we culled the field down from 100 people down to, top 30, and you got 17th. That's a great place to be. But people get tired of that. They need a home to be that's inspiring in the meantime. And that's where gathering these teams together are going to keep talented, contributing soloists in the community and inspire them to become judges at events, inspire them to become coaches for high school, and inspire them to stay in the community and keep contributing to the growth and welfare of others.
Sick. Well, all very good, thoughtful answers. We are basically out of time. Any final thoughts?
Yeah, just go find something to do outside of going out in your backyard and drilling. Find one other person to help, and that's enough. One person who's passionate and needs a little bit of direction. If you can work with them and drill with them and become friends with them, that's enough. Don't concern yourself too much with this huge overarching narrative. Every drill season is a new drill season, and every person that you can influence is worth influencing. So focus small, and you're going to see big stuff happen out of that.
All right, good stuff. Thanks for talking with me, and have a lovely day, Adam Jeup from YouTube.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate the opportunity to speak, and I hope this project goes very well, and I hope it's really fun for people to listen to. So thanks for having me on as a guest. I really appreciate it.
Yes, sir. I'll see you.
All right, bye.
Thank you for listening. Stay dialed in. You could be the next call.